Hi, I'm Anthony Sammarco, and I'm the author of Lost Boston. This week we're actually visiting Dudley Square, an area in Roxbury, Massachusetts that's seen tremendous reinvestment over the last decade. During the period of the 17th and 18th century, this was an integral part because it was the only land entrance to Boston. Boston was connected to Roxbury by what was called the Neck. Today, that's the present area of both Charlotte Avenue and Washington Street. This area of Dudley Square was named for Governor Joseph Dudley. He was the governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay Colony from 1702 to 1715. But by the period of the 18th and 19th century, this area was being developed. It was accessible to Boston by a horse-drawn omnibus. By the latter part of the 19th century, Roxbury's population had tripled since the period of the Revolution. And in 1901, the area would be developed for what is today Dudley Square, with the old elevated railway known as the Boston L. Opened in 1901 and designed by Alexander Wadsworth Longfellow, a very well-known architect and the nephew of the great poet, we saw in some ways that this area itself would become a thriving and bustling crossroads. But in this period, we saw tremendous growth, not just residential but commercial, and would also include many different buildings and businesses. Directly behind me is today the Bruce Bowling Municipal Building. It's a wonderful addition to Dudley Square. We're at the junction of Warren and Washington Street in Roxbury, and directly behind me is the old Ferdinand's department store. This was a furniture store that had been founded in 1865 by Frank Ferdinand, a German immigrant. But by 1895, the business had thrived, and actually this new building was constructed. We saw it as a wonderful classical revival building that was called the Blue Store. The Blue Store itself would have 5 acres of display space with some of the finest furniture that was available throughout the Boston area. But by 1971, the building closed and the family sold the property. During the period of the early turn of the 21st century, the building itself would be purchased and remodeled. Directly behind me is an area that is the corner of Washington and Vernon Streets. And this area, which actually looks very solid and staid, is something that in the future will be developed for the new Kenneth Guscott building. This is something that's actually being planned as one of the tallest structures in all of Roxbury. So this building will actually add to the overlay of almost 4 centuries of architecture since 1630 in Roxbury. This area in the 19th and early 20th century was a thriving crossroads. So many of the buildings that survive give testimony to the wealth that was here in Roxbury 100 years ago.